You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. Our performances was just lacked that intensity.
Boom. Right. The Gillette Labs performance rankings, every Sunday evening we put a little box up on Instagram, on our Instagram stories, and you can tell us who you think should be in the red, in the amber. We struggle with the amber. And sometimes we struggle with the green. Not this week, though. No struggles this week.
No, it's not. You know what? Some of the busy weeks, it can be a struggle because you don't know what to put in, what to leave out. But I think we'll start with, in the red, Fabinho. One of the worst cameos of all time. Probably the worst cameo since Donald Trump in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. He was horrific when he came on and didn't add anything to Liverpool's midfield. And then there was the tackle, which I've clearly got the YouTube commenters already talking this morning, lads. I mean, if VAR have one job, they did it wrong yesterday. Because if there's ever an example of when you need to upgrade a yellow card to a red card in Stockley Park, that was it. It was a horrendous tackle. I know, Nathan, you were there, and we saw the images from your very phone of poor Evan limping out of the stadium on his crutches. Really hope it's not a bad injury. I suppose we'll have to wait and see based off a scan today. Klopp's comments, and I have them in front of me here, were quite interesting. He said, first of all, he didn't see the tackle. But then he expanded on the tackle. He said,
hear this.
There was no dynamic on it.
We can hear this.
Oh, sorry, we have the clip.
Yeah.
Let's listen.
The Fabinho challenge, was no dynamic in, but I didn't just saw it once, not the second time. I think with dynamic, we can talk about the red card. Was more lying, and then he hit him. Not cool. Ibu, I didn't really see in the moment, and Robbo, it's late in the game. It's nothing to do with falling apart. It's frustration. It's not right to do it. Well, against us, teams get constantly yellow cards usually, and nobody asks the opposition these questions. But for us, we are not used to that. We don't concede usually yellow cards. But imagine the boys wouldn't react at all. I don't like it. I don't think that's the right way to do it, and I have to look it twice or maybe three times to judge it a little bit better. But again, I'm pretty sure your assessment or what you made of it is not right, but it can be still your opinion, of course.
We didn't hear the question there, but presumably the question was, you should have got a red card, right?
And you'd imagine so.
Yeah, Klopp is always going to defend his players. He always defends his players, win or lose after every game. But listen, there's no question, it had to be a red card. When you saw it first, it looked a little bit clumsy. But the second you look on the replay, and you can see why the referee maybe thought initially a yellow card, he's sort of clipped the back of his heel. Once you look at a replay, it's clear that this is an incredibly dangerous tackle. The raking down, the pushing through at the back of the ankle, and the damage that it has done to Evan Ferguson. It has to be a red card. And again, it's one of those decisions that makes you wonder, what is the point of VAR? I think Andy Robertson was slightly different. I'm not quite sure it was a red, but like Fabinho was the most nailed on red. And Fabinho knew.
His reaction, he was like, oh, what have I done?
I think Fabinho went in and it was probably clumsy at first, and then he knew that the way he had caught him, players know instantly in a split second the damage that they can do, and the reaction and the awkwardness of Evan Ferguson's fall. And yeah, it was a really, really bad end to what up to that had been a very entertaining game. And you know, I left the Amex yesterday feeling pretty down because, you know, watching Evan Ferguson go out on crutches, like today is a big day in Evan Ferguson's career. What that scan shows up and how long he's going to be out for. I know there was a feeling leaving the stadium last night that they were quite hopeful that it wouldn't be an ACL and that it would be a lesser thing than that. He seemed to have a knee brace on. We're 8 weeks today away from France. It's hard to see how he gets himself back in time and plays enough football ahead of that, but hopefully it's just some bruising and it was the instant reaction and the pain of the tackle. But it certainly seemed to be more a knee problem for Ferguson than it was an ankle issue with the way and the awkwardness of the fall. And, you know, after playing so well again yesterday, probably should have scored, but his overall all-round game, you kind of have to remind yourself, this is an 18-year-old kid out there. He looks and he fits in so well against, you know, Liverpool played a lot better yesterday than they did 2 weeks ago. You know, he's alongside Danny Welbeck up front, England international Premier League winner, and there was no question when they were changing the striker, it was going to be Welbeck who would come off first because Ferguson had a much greater impact. And even the 10 minutes before he came off, where Liverpool were starting to get a little bit of control and was quite scrappy in midfield. They brought on Henderson, they brought on Fabinho. He just sat back into the midfield, desperate to get on the ball all the time, little touches, getting himself involved. Not the performance I was expecting from him. I sort of thought, against Liverpool, they might try and sit him off the shoulder of the defender, try and stretch the defence. This was all about playing in a deeper role, getting himself involved in the game, being a more creative force. And then he has the 2 chances. The first half one, he really has to score. He needs to hit the first time. The second one, he couldn't have done much more. But to go from that and watching that performance for 80 minutes and thinking, like Stephen Kenny, as far as I know, was there yesterday, has to be looking at that going, this is exactly what we'll come up with against France. In fact, he might come up against one of these centre-halves in Canate against France. He's not going to be able to play off the shoulder. I'll need him dropping deep to get involved against France. And he was able to do it so brilliantly. And to finish then on crutches and, a potentially very serious knee injury, it's just devastating, I think, for him and for all Irish fans.
I had assumed it was... I hadn't even thought about the knee thing. This is kind of... very depressing. I had actually not considered that was going to be an issue this morning, that it was more soreness, Achilles, and that can obviously bring its own, if the Achilles is ruptured or whatever, that's a fairly horrific injury. But, I hadn't thought about the possibility even of an ACL. So that is in the potential circle of outcome here.
It's certainly, it looked like a knee injury, and the talk afterwards was that it was a knee injury. Now, obviously when I saw him walking past was probably half an hour after the game. So I'd imagine there was quite a bit of swelling there, and I have to wait for that to go down before they can have the scan. I'm sure they'll have it as quickly as possible. Maybe it won't even be today, but that was the concern, that it would be a serious knee injury, far more than I was the same as you. Obviously, watching initially, you look at the ankle and think, maybe the ankle was quite sore with the way it went down. Maybe it was ligaments in the ankle. There is that piece where he walks around the pitch and he's getting the ovation, and unfortunately, quite often it is a ligament injury when you see that the player is able to walk initially. And it's later that they find the full effects of it. But look, it's too early to say that it's anything quite that serious. And look, anything less than that, he could be back in a month, 4 or 5 weeks. Or maybe it's just severe bruising and he's going to be just fine and he'll be back. And, Roberto De Zerbi was saying in the press conference yesterday that even he's been very surprised as to how good Evan Ferguson has been since he threw him in for the half an hour against Arsenal. Sort of forgets himself that he's 18 years of age. It's an important couple of days for Evan Ferguson, having got his way into the team. He was been asked about Undav, who was a sub yesterday, who came on from, would he go out on loan? Maybe he doesn't go on loan if Ferguson's going to be out for a little while. So these are the little sliding doors moments that can happen in your career. But look, whatever happens, he'll come back and he's going to go on, and you expect to become a big player for club and for country.
Yeah, there was a huge
this
piece,
was his time.
A huge piece on Saturday in the London Times about Ferguson and the making of him and his time as a kid in Dublin, growing up and all that sort of stuff. And still that line about, hey, he can still play for England. I presume that's just a headline grabber, try and make everybody interested. Why am I reading about this 18-year-old? Because he might play for England. Is that?
I think it definitely felt that way. I was desperately trying to find the article just in case there was a bit of depth to that, but I think it was just pointing out that he is eligible to play for England. There's never been any suggestion at all that he would.
We've been heard once before, so
Ireland.
we're all just as a
yeah, but listen, Evan Ferguson was born in Ireland. He's lived up in Bettystown all his life, so I suspect that was to make it more interesting for the English audience.
The fact that he is a much fouled player, like you even saw Canate having a piece out of him as well and got a yellow card. Like, it's just the nature of the position, I guess, holding the ball up, and you're going to get chopped from behind quite often. And he holds the ball up so well. And as you say, Nathan, he had a number of flicks in the match where you're like, this guy doesn't lose the ball too often.
So we're saying he's more Harry Kane than Lewandowski. Is that what we're getting to?
In the article yesterday, it said he modelled his game more than Lewandowski. I think against Liverpool, they were looking for something else from him. Like, you would hope he can do both, but you're right. Like, Canate is a strong man, and he held him off twice, and that's why he was fouled. Because when he got the ball, his first thing was to take the contact from the player to make himself as big as he possibly could, and they have a little bit of a nibble at him, and he'd turn his back, he'd shield the ball brilliantly. So if he can drop back, because again, I think we got to be honest here, for international football, you're going to probably need that from
a lot of that,
Ireland number 9 in the current system. So
it means you can play him with any of the other Irish strikers who we have. He can play with Adam Ida, he can play with Troy Parrott, he can play with Michael Obafemi. Like, you can now have our 3 at the back and 2 up front, and he can drop deep or he can play up top, and that's a brilliant flexibility built in, as you say, from an 18-year-old for the rest of his career. Let's fingers crossed that this is the worst injury he ever gets.
Absolutely. Now, I think, again, for those games where you're playing, can we call anyone lesser opposition in international football right now, where you want to play him and an Obafemi up front together. I think he has that ability. He still has a bit to go. In a way, he almost seemed reticent to get in the area at times, and De Zerbi touched on that as well, that his movement off the ball just needs a little bit of fine-tuning as to when he gets in the area, make sure he's desperate to get in there and there's a bit more movement. Like, look, I'm watching him and you're kind of thinking, what would Erling Haaland do in this situation? And those little darting runs that Haaland makes all the time, he's not quite doing that. But twice in the 6-yard box, the edge of it, he found himself in the perfect position at exactly the right time. So he clearly has that little bit of know-how to find himself there. And listen, it's such a shame he didn't get that goal early on yesterday to give Brighton the lead. But Everton, he's not long gone 18. He's 18 years of age. Yeah. And he's playing against the Liverpool team, who were certainly a lot better than they were the last time they played Brighton a couple of weeks ago. And in no way would you have said this guy is a kid. Like, he still only played one full 90 minutes of senior football, and that was in the Carabao Cup against Middlesbrough. He hasn't played another 90 minutes of senior football yet. So let's hope that comes very, very soon. But that's the inexperience of the player, and that wasn't the player that we saw out on the pitch yesterday.
Brandon Pank says, sums up Fabinho this season. Brian says, Jordan Henderson's still playing for a team who wants to win things. He's been finished for nearly 2 years, yet Klopp is still giving him a minute. Liverpool's performance gets worse every time he's on. Jack Nulty asks, do you think Klopp could be sacked this season? Headline in the back of all the English papers are picking up on Andy Robertson's comments. Bad to worse. A new low in the FA Cup. I mean, look, it's the FA Cup. It's obviously, it was an opportunity for them to win a trophy. They're clearly not going to win the Premier League this season. They're not out of the other ones. Very tricky draw in the Champions League. So maybe they were desperate for a victory in that game. Surely there's not a world that exists in all of the many simulations in which Jurgen Klopp gets fired.
No, there's no world in which that happens this season. They've lost 9 games now in all competitions, and while there were moments yesterday where they looked, I wouldn't even say anywhere back to their best, where they looked like they had a bit of energy about them, at least. Like, this was a Brighton team missing Caicedo in the middle of midfield. Just sold Leandro Trossard, and Brighton were the better team still for large parts of that game. They looked completely lost. Like the Liverpool that we saw towards the back end of last season, that were winning the couple of cups, that were, remember, they were, with 20 minutes to go in the Premier League season, they thought one more goal probably wins them the league. Like, that relentless intensity that you just took for granted that was in every game. It's not there. It's not there. And Fabinho is the prime example of that. And look, I think I brought it up right at the start of the season, that game against Crystal Palace where he misses the tackle. He never missed the tackle. Never missed a tackle for 3 or 4 years. And now he's missing tackles and he's loose and he's late. And you're right, Shane, he came on yesterday and he didn't. You're expecting him and Henderson to make the impact. I thought Henderson did all right when he came on, but like the midfield, and he's taking off a teenager. And Fabinho's lessening the quality in the middle of the pitch. So they need to do something rapidly. It doesn't look as though they're going to do anything over the next 48 hours in terms of signing a midfielder. And it'll be the second time in 3 seasons that their season probably just ends up petering out unless they can just get a little bit of momentum somehow and get into the fight for the top 4. But there's nothing we've seen since the return from the World Cup that they're just going to spark into life. It's not there.
There's no fear factor either. Like, I was even watching, I guess we were all on Evan Ferguson watch yesterday in some ways. You obviously got it up close and personal, Nathan, but even from the tip-off at the very start of the match, he's standing on the halfway line, standing with Mo Salah, I think, and they're having a bit of a conversation. And Salah had this aura a couple of years ago, and now all of a sudden, even when the game kicks off, Ferguson straight away stops the conversation with Salah, runs straight away to kind of charge down the Liverpool defence. We have Fabinho and Liverpool in the red, but realistically, it should be the VAR in the red and the officials, because, as you said, Ger, what's the point? What's the point, in having VAR if the likes of that foul isn't upgraded? All
right, we will come back to this with Mark Lawrence in not too long. Quick update in the golf. McIlroy still a stroke clear. Reed and Herbert now 14 under. McIlroy's on 15 under. Reed has finished his front 9. Herbert's through 11. McIlroy is just on the 9th. And could do with an old birdie, just to remind everybody that he's not going to be purely playing defence today. Let's move on. Patrick Reed is also in the red.
Well, he is indeed. Well, he usually is in the red, but we're going to stick with the golf because, as we were watching yesterday...
We're just going to make a public service announcement here. We're going to be very careful not to get sued by Patrick Reed because he's obviously...
litigious individual.
Yeah, and as is his right.
Yeah.
If someone's done wrong by you, you've got to get out there and defend your name. All that all that honour that you've built up over the years, you've got to make sure that no one is trying to take away anything from that. Just
that's fair. Yeah, we accept crappy quiz questions to Off the Ball Marconi House, but we prefer not to get subpoenas to the door if we can avoid it. So Patrick Reid, it was T-Gate, but then it became Tree-Gate yesterday. So, I mean, this is a boy who cried wolf scenario, because a lot of people were saying this incident, maybe we should give Patrick Reid the benefit of the doubt. For anyone who missed it, DP World Tour issues a statement to clarify a rules scenario involving Reid, courting controversy again at the tournament in front of us, the Dubai Desert Classic. So he takes a penalty drop on the 17th hole of his third round yesterday after identifying his ball by specific markings when lodged up a tree. Now, he says without that identification, Reid would have had to return to the tee to play his third shot. Social media, of course, gets active when this footage emerges, which appears to show Reid's ball landing in a different tree to the one he took the drop beside. Reid saying after the round, he was 100% sure he had seen his own ball with the assistance of binoculars. He says, I would have gone back to the tee if I was not 100%, escaping with a bogey 5 en route to his 69, which left him in contention, of course, and we see today the benefit of that lack of a dropped shot on that particular hole. The tour didn't deny Reid could have dropped from the wrong tee, but seemed to assume responsibility, saying 2 on-course referees and several marshals identified with Reid his ball that had become lodged. Who knows what's going on here, whether Reid's telling the truth or not, but what happened was, takes the drop from beside the tree, social media burst into life, and the rest is history. Patrick Reid is the bad boy again. You were watching this, Nathan?
Yeah, his reputation doesn't help him in this scenario, and I've watched about 8 different replays of various commentators breaking it down in slow motion to show that of the three trees that are there, Patrick Reid's ball clearly goes in the first one, yet he found his ball in the third one, which is about 7-8 yards to the right of the ball that he says he saw his ball in. Now, there is the possibility that it hit that first tree and popped up into the second tree, and that he's correct.
They call this the magic bullet theory.
Defying
physics. There is
back
also
and to the left. Back and to the left.
When you look at that tree, so these are palm trees, and when they zoomed in the TV camera, there's 6-7 balls up there, even then that little shot alone. So this is a popular spot where your ball ends up getting stuck, and he plays a very popular brand of golf ball. Now, his markings are also very similar to what a lot of people would have. Now, he has a little red mark that maybe not every golfer, but he has that straight line as well, and he says it's an arrow
in the red this morning,
on the ball. So he claims that he saw the ball. Now, he also claims, I think, that it felt like the referee made the decision. So he described to the referee what the ball was like, says, I can see it. And the referee goes, well, that's what that sort of ball is. Listen, I think the referee's in a no-win situation. If he says, this is what my ball looks like, and there's one of them up there, well, then fair enough. But as I said, there were a lot of golf balls in that tree.
A lot.
I do buy the distinctive markings thing, though. Like, everybody has to say, they don't really. Everybody has a slightly distinctive. It's not quite a snowflake or a fingerprint, but there's definitely, so not everybody will have seen this, but you go to the range and the caddies are constantly marking the ball to make sure that, because this is going to happen all the time, the landing zone for all the world's best golfers is, very small area. It's not that, and as you say, they all play roughly the same brand of ball. So they are pretty good about trying to make sure that no one's going to end up playing their ball, because that's a catastrophic mistake that could cost them in a major tournament. So I do buy the bit where he says, yeah, now that's my ball because it's got this, and this, and can you see this, and this? And then, so there's a little bit of wiggle room here for me to think that for once Patrick Reid is not the villain we're making him out to be.
Oh, you're going soft. You're going soft,
No, the problem for Patrick Reid is that there's no wiggle room with Patrick Reid because he has such a reputation. And you're right. Did anybody come over to him and say, actually, that ball didn't hit that tree? We're looking several hours afterwards, people pointing out it wasn't in that tree. And if he assumes his ball's in that tree and there's markings that are either the same or very similar, well then, maybe he's perfectly entitled. Obviously, the video footage shows that it's highly unlikely.
Why is the video footage emerging hours later as opposed to in real time? It's not as if they don't have a gazillion people working and the prize money is so rich and the tour company, they've invested so much money in the TV. I don't really understand why there isn't...
Well, I think... Even on the footage, maybe the referee and it has happened from time to time where radar will be down on the edge of the fairway and somebody they'll be looking for a ball and somebody will shout at them and go, actually it looks like it's about 10 yards further left on the TV footage. like the TV footage, is it conclusive? Like, is it beyond the realms of possibility that the ball hits the tree and pops out and pops up? Like, it's traveling at a rate of knots and it goes out of picture. Perhaps
it's not. You're right. Lee Harvey also acted alone. It's totally true. Nathan,
but this is, and look, Patrick Reed, I'm sure, will address this afterwards. But when you have that reputation, it means everybody is ready for the pile-on. But look at. If you're wondering what to do for the next couple of hours, you've got Rory McIlroy one shot clear of Patrick Reed, which even without all of this, what a subtext that was with the European Tour, PGA Tour against Live Golf. This is good Monday morning viewing.
Without Teagate, which started the week, where Patrick Reed threw a tee at Rory McIlroy like a petulant child, and then accused McIlroy of being a petulant child. Notwithstanding the fact that Patrick Reed did destroy him in the Masters when they were up against each other a couple of years ago. So, McIlroy needs to see this out just for his own, because they will come up against each other again in the major down the stretch.
They will. Rory's never won on the first start of the year. Listen, I don't think what happens here will affect Reed, McIlroy. I think Rory's going to contend in a lot of majors. I don't think Patrick Reed has that level of consistency. But there'll be a bit of fire in Rory's belly.
Never give a sucker an even break. You gotta
There'll be a lot of fire in Rory's belly today.
3-stroke
He hasn't
leads.
showed it. He's playing just very steady golf at the moment. Power.
All right, Nathan, good stuff. Thanks very much. The footage that Nathan had, of course, is available to view from the Amex yesterday. Unfortunately, it is of Evan Ferguson on a crutch and with what appears to be a knee brace as well. You can check it out on his Twitter and on our Twitter at Off The Ball. Roy McIlroy is a stroke clear. We'll keep you up to date on how that's going. That's the red. The amber.
Yes, the amber, as you say, it's a difficult one to pick, but for anyone in the comments, let us know if you saw this game as well, because I was watching an FA Cup classic yesterday evening.
Is the FA Cup back?
Oh, it is completely
Is that
back.
what we're saying? That Man United and Alex Ferguson screwed the FA Cup by, pulling out of it 25 years ago.
Long time ago,
Everybody kind of took that as their signal for this doesn't really matter. But it seems like everybody's picking their best teams largely, or very strong teams anyway.
Yeah.
And the games have been pretty good. The shocks have been off the charts. Is it back?
Teams want trophies, Ger. Teams want trophies, as it turns out. Eric Ten Hag being one of them, because United's team, I heard one of the Reading players speaking after the match at the weekend, where he was saying, we were waiting to see the United team that was dropped for the Old Trafford match, and we were thinking, he's going to play out a weakened team.
He did not.
He did not.
No, he did not.
They were absolutely buzzing, to be fair, because they wanted to play the United best players. But I think it is back. I think there's a bit of excitement about it. We almost had magic at the Wrexham racecourse ground. It just didn't happen, Ger.
Birdie time. Rory McIlroy got to 16 under.
16 under?
Yeah.
Birdie. I mean, 8 birdies yesterday, so...
His first of the front nine on the 9th.
Good time to get it.
Yeah.
2-shot lead. The game yesterday, Wrexham 3, Sheffield United 3. For anyone watching this, it was a Hollywood Cup tie, because you had Ryan Reynolds in the audience, in the crowd. Camera obviously panning to him constantly and consistently. Rob McElhenney was in Philadelphia, of course, for his Eagles team. He apparently was watching the game at the tailgate of the Eagles match. There's a tweet from Ryan Reynolds we have there. When Rob McElhenney and I got into this, it all felt so impossible. But impossible is Wrexham's favourite colour. That was one of the most exciting things I've ever seen. Thank you each and every Wrexham supporter who came out and aimed your heart at that pitch tonight. There was that strange, funny coming together of Ryan Reynolds, Alan Shearer and Gary Lineker before the game on television, where they did an interview. And Reynolds was very good. He was kind of talking about the whole dream, saying in 10 years' time the plan is and always has been the Premier League. Still thinks it's possible. And fair play to him. They're a National League at the moment. They're fairly certain, you'd imagine, at the moment of promotion from the National League. They're flying. Their home form is brilliant. They haven't lost a game at home all season, I don't think. So they're playing really, really good football. Tom O'Connor as well, I should mention him. He's a lad from the Wexford-Kilkenny border. Loved his hurling growing up. He's 23 or so at this stage. He's Irish under 19 and 21 international. A former teammate at underage level with Ireland of John Egan's.
Right.
And Egan, of course, scoring the 95th minute equaliser. Tom O'Connor scored the second goal for Wrexham to put them 2-1 ahead. They went 3-2 ahead late on. And you're thinking this is it. And then John Egan, from a corner, bundles in a goal to snatch victory from per Wrexham. And it's a replay at Bramall Lane to come. So not saying they can't get over the line in the replay, but last night felt, especially with 20 minutes left, Sheffield United went down to 10 men. It just felt like the time was there for them.
Although, just think of the content. Just think of the content. That's
it's content, yeah. I mean, I think they announced on Friday they'd sold 24,000 replica shirts so far this season, Wrexham. So, I mean, Netflix works.
Nearly as much as Bose.
Nearly as much as Bose and the Bob, what is it?
Bob Marley. Bob Marley.
Yeah, I was going to say Bob Dylan, but Bob Dylan's not on the Bohemian
He's next.
shirts. He's next. But it was just one of those proper old school cup ties. Even the red card, Ger, was a little circle red card.
All right, wow.
I mean, this felt old school.
That's just for the cameras.
I hope so.
Okay, so as we say, amber is tricky because you could easily put that in the green.
Yeah,
for
they just didn't get over
that
that
being
line.
back. But they've got another bite of the cherry, and we'll see if they can make these standings again. I've no doubt they will over the years. Right, in green.
Yes, in green.
A lot of people already giving out. No mention of Roscommon. Where are the Rossies? You didn't even mention them in the rankings last week. Rubbing a bit of salt in the wound, says Darren McAlinden. What about Rory Began and his disaster kick out to Tiernan Kelly? Oh, I've lost the Roscommon. David Clark. Again, Roscommon did not even get a mention in the rankings last week. Brushed over and probably had performance of the weekend.
Look, we're getting to them. They obviously deserve to be in the green, don't they? I, for one, am delighted that the league was back. Made my way to Castleblaney on Saturday night under the lights at Mary's Park for Monaghan versus Armagh. Result didn't go Monaghan's way, as one of the commenters points out. Just before half-time, Rory Began takes a kick out straight to Armagh's full forward Tiernan Kelly and kicks it towards goal. Rory nearly stops it on the line, but it bundles in. Just one of those days for Monaghan.
You were being kind there. I think if Rory had that whole thing over again...
he should have stopped it on the line as well.
He should have stopped it on the line.
Yeah, as well as the bad kick out. So
as he knows. Yeah.
One of those moments that just wasn't great for Rory or Monaghan. Jack McCarran pulled up injured within the first 50 seconds for Monaghan as well. I mean, Conor McManus and the two Hughes brothers, Kieran and Darren, weren't involved, so they're to come back in. It's Kerry away from Monaghan next weekend, and all of a sudden you're looking at that fixture going, okay, probably need to win.
A bitter Kerry team as well, who feel like they were robbed up in Donegal.
I was watching this game.
Although I think, did they not have a point that was a bit dodgy at one stage as well? Jack O'Connor was not very happy with it.
Well, yeah, O'Connor wasn't happy with the Donegal point in the first half from, was it Cialan McGonigal, young lad on his debut, man of the match, scored 3 points for Donegal. He was brilliant. But his second point of those appeared to go wide, certainly from the angle of the stands and the management teams. This ball appears to go wide. It was waved over straight away. But then the sideline official queried it with the referee. The referee goes over to the umpires and they still decide, no, it was a point. Jack O'Connor was not happy.
Well, whatever about that. And that's kind of stealing away from Donegal.
Well, yeah.
For the last 3 minutes, they basically have possession, and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be like was it the game against Armagh where Derry had the ball a couple of years ago and couldn't even get a shot off. But they were just being very, 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 very patient, waiting for McBrearty to get in the right spot to just sling it over his left foot.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a brilliant end to the game.
It is one of those moments where you have to wind down the clock, because if you score the winner
early, yeah,
it's
like American football. Yeah,
exactly.
They were really smart with it, and still Kerry had a couple of chances down the far end. So, my sympathy for Kerry in this situation is very limited, and obviously Kerry have a gazillion players still to come back.
True.
We should mention that Derry picked their Glen players.
Yeah, mad.
We should mention that.
Ethan Doherty and Conor Glass, both playing.
What are you doing, Rory? Come on, just give the lads an hour, a week off.
Yeah.
Didn't even talk about a week off, says Rory afterwards. So it's a unique approach that they have. And look, I guess Division 2 in the league is actually far more important than the Ulster Championship this year, because if they finish in the top half of that, they're guaranteed to be playing in Sam Maguire, and they've already got their Ulster glory. So we'll see what happens.
It speaks volumes what's happening in Derry, though, because they want to play. There's obviously a mentality within that squad at the moment that we don't want to miss out here. We want to be playing straight away from the outset of the league.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one. We should give the Roscommon fans what they want.
Well, Kerry played Paul Murphy as well. He was just a week earlier with Rathmore, so it's not like they were the only ones at it.
No Cliffords, though, and no Cliffords next week either. I think Jack O'Connor's saying for the Monaghan game next week, everyone who was missing yesterday will be missing once more.
Are they not all banned anyway?
This is the thing.
A handy red card at the end of the season, you're like, I'll have a couple of weeks off.
Yeah, exactly. And the number of injuries in that squad as well.
The league being back, though, the Mayo game, the Mayo Galway game,
brilliant.
Goal of the season is already wrapped up.
I mean, James Carr does he know how to score a normal goal? I don't think he does.
Oh shit. Ooh. Patrick Reed almost had an albatross, it looks like.
That's not what you want to see.
Is that a long club? It is a long club. Yeah.
It's the strut for me, And Poulter sitting there in second as well, ready to pounce. But yeah, still a 2-shot lead.
Not for long, because he's definitely on a par 5, and I think he nearly had.
Straight and true.
Yeah. Anyway, look. Woo, that was one of those ones where you're watching the Masters on the Saturday and the Sunday, and somebody hits that like on the 10th. You're like, okay, well, sure, we can all go to bed now, because if you're doing that, it's game over.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to have like a tap in eagle putt to go level with McIlroy. Anyway, go on.
The Mayo Galway game, brilliant. Draw, probably the fair result. Poor Joyce, speaking to Ashton afterwards, wasn't happy with the added time. Certainly felt like they went a minute above what they should have. Judging by the clock on screen, it didn't appear that they went too far over. I don't know. It was a brilliant score by Ryan O'Donoghue to level the game.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
earn a point for that, and a little bit of sportsmanship as well. I think it was Sean Kelly marking him, who was smirking at him as he walked back over to him and kind of gave him a pat to say, "Great score."
Yeah, I wonder was there a previous conversation between the two? Maybe not. He'd missed one.
Yeah,
a few minutes before that too. So it's back. We've got Moylesy on a little bit later on this. Colm has joined us.
Morning, lads.
Colm.
Bad weekend for Cork.
Bad weekend for Cork, yeah.
Well, it's a mixed weekend
because they were Sherlock though. 14 points with the 19. He'd be delighted.
Highest scoring defeated team.
Rankings. Yeah.
All of our three teams lost.
For 52 minutes.
Cork, Monaghan, and Kildare.
The last quarter that it went bad.
Yeah, true.
Only the first game.
We had a bad weekend, lads.
Yeah. What a weekend of sport. I think I watched 8 different games on Saturday on the TV. Through different sports. Like
now that you're married, you now do that.
Well, I had the house to myself. So it was 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. of watching. It was 14 hours.
What were you watching from the women's final?
The women's final in the Australian Open, which, by the way, was a cracker. Aryna Sabalenka won her first Grand Slam title. In her first Grand Slam final, beat Alina Rybakina, who's the reigning Wimbledon champion. This is some match, lads. 2.5 hours over 3 sets. Rybakina won the first set and then had 2 break points in the first game of the second set, so could have wrapped this up pretty comfortably. Sabalenka had a 3-0 winning record heading into that match against Rybakina. But then she went from there. She hit 51 winners, Sabalenka, in this final. That's outrageous. Like, anything from 20 to 25 is really impressive, so 51 is amazing.
Right.
And Rybakina hit 31. And they were just going for it. Like, they're very similar players. We'll get a bit more on this later with Jenny Claffey, who will break it down a little bit more, but they're basically power players who just go for everything with flat ground strokes. So Sabalenka hit 28 unforced errors, Rybakina hit 25. So they were just hit or miss the whole time. They were just going for it. And it ended up being that, like, it was this power fest where the longest rally was 13 strokes, which is really short. So the average rally was 3.28 strokes, which is really low for that level of the game. But the quality of hitting was amazing. Just winner after winner after winner after winner. And Sabalenka, it's an incredible redemption story. Last year, she hit something like 450 double faults. Completely got the yips on her serve to the extent that she started serving underarm. Her coach, her long-time coach, offered to resign. She said, no, we'll sort this, don't worry. And she basically spent 2022 taking responsibility for herself, in her own words. So she dropped her sports psychologist. She said she was outsourcing all of her problems too much and she needed to resolve them herself. And she kept the coach. And now we got to the point where she went from 450 double faults last year, completely disastrous server, to being a kind of a serving sensation. She hit 17 aces in this final.
Right.
Rybakina hit 9. So it's a brilliant story. And then, of course, the other side of it too is she was playing under a neutral flag. She's from Belarus. So Sabalenka wasn't allowed to play at Wimbledon last year. And as it stands, she won't be allowed to play at Wimbledon this year because they still have that rule in place where no Russians or Belarusian players are allowed to play. Whereas in the other 3 Grand Slams, they can play, but under a neutral flag, like at this one. And afterwards, Sabalenka was quite open about the fact that she's proudly from Belarus. So it's a victory for her and for them. She's quite close to the country's president as well. But thankfully for Sabalenka, she's fulfilling her promise. Herself and Maria Sakkari are 2 of the most talented players on tour, but just couldn't get it over the line. As I say, this is Sabalenka's first Grand Slam final. She had been to 3 semi-finals before and basically blew it. One was against Barbora Krejcikova in the French Open 2021, where she had a match point in the semi-final, and Krejcikova won that. And another was against Emma Raducanu. Leila Fernandez in the US Open the year that Emma Raducanu won it. So finally, Sabalenka made it.
Okay. And then the other one, obviously, Novak wins.
Novak, you'll be delighted. 10 finals, 10 wins at the Australian Open. And overall, he's now level with Rafael Nadal, 22 Grand Slam titles apiece.
I think we need some way of, deciding the GOAT. If you're going to, because people keep coming at us in the comments going, oh, the GOAT. You need to take out the tournament that they win the most and then see who's left. That'd be it. So you take out the 12.
Well,
Paris.
They still won the tournament.
Or you take out these 10. Would Federer have the most even spread?
No. Federer only won Roland Garros once, and Nadal was knocked out by the guy he beat in the final, Robin Soderling. Whereas Djokovic has won the French Open twice, and one of those times is beating Nadal en route in 2021, which is one of the greatest matches of this century. And he's won the US Open 3 times.
3 and 2.
Nadal has won the Australian Open only twice. Last year was the second, and that was without Djokovic playing, so there's an asterisk there. And he's only won Wimbledon twice, Nadal, and the last time was 2010. So I would say Djokovic is the best spread. And like Djokovic, like he's won the Australian Open 10 times, fair enough. But like Nadal is 14 at the French Open, and I think Federer's 8 at Wimbledon. I would say overall Djokovic. Here's an interesting stat though. Djokovic has yet to win a Grand Slam without dropping a set, whereas Nadal and Federer did that several times. So Djokovic dropped the set in the second round this year. But though, look, the whole emotion about this, probably the biggest takeaway, look, the match itself against Stefanos Tsitsipas wasn't great, didn't live up to expectations. At second time they've met in a Grand Slam final. Tsitsipas went 2 sets up in the French Open final in 2021, but this time Djokovic won in straight sets. Tsitsipas had a set point second set in a 15-shot rally where he was just waiting for Djokovic to miss until Djokovic hit a winner, and that was really the end of the match as a contest, even though it was 2 tie breaks after that. Afterwards Djokovic collapsed in his box.
Did he?
Tears. Yeah.
Oh, in tears.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Because the injury, I'm injured. I'm so injured. No, you're not. He's just you're not. It's not credible. It's not credible. My point, sorry, is if you take out the one that they won the most, right? Then what are you left with in terms of numbers? That would be interesting. What have we got? We got 7 and 3 is 10 and 2 is 12 for Djokovic. You take his 10 out. For Nadal, if you take his 14 out, he's got 8. And if you add up Federer's, he's also got 12.
Yeah, but Federer's on 20 overall.
Yeah, no,
the two lads are 22.
Take out the one they won the most. Take out their favoured surface.
Yeah.
What are they left? You'd have Djokovic and Federer. See the gymnastics. I
think I still think it's Djokovic if you're going to say that.
They all have lovely trophies.
Because Federer only won the French Open once,
but it's the same number.
Yeah, but it's an even spread. You're talking about the spread. Like the lowest number that Djokovic has won at any slam is the French Open, and that was twice, and he beat the greatest player on clay ever to win that.
Okay.
You know.
Why don't you just marry Novak Djokovic?
Well, I think he should be defended. I think Djokovic is great to watch, and he's brilliant.
What's in his bottles? That's all. He should tell us a bit more about his incredible fitness regime.
I don't know where you're going with that, but I think look, he wasn't going to play like this tournament. He had a hamstring injury.
He didn't have a hamstring injury.
And well,
he seems grand. He seemed to get
his
better.
Coach Goran Ivanisevic said 97% of players would have pulled out with the results from the MRI scan, but Djokovic didn't. And Djokovic's annoyance afterwards yesterday was saying that a lot of people doubted the legitimacy of the injury.
It's a flu game.
A lot of people did.
Yeah.
So we had that. He had coming back after last year being deported, and he basically has
where he falsified medical records.
Is a perception against him
and should have been banned from the tour.
He ain't great, but he did it.
Yeah,
he did it. And now we're level. And look, the French Open's going to be class because you have Nadal, Djokovic, 22 apiece, and then Carlos Alcaraz if he's fit. He was world number 1 heading into this tournament. Now Djokovic is again.
Yeah, show up, Alcaraz. Come on, let's be having you.
Sensational.
Should mention before we wrap on the performance rankings, lads. And look, people are saying in the comments, I'm not giving Donegal credit. It's paining me to give Donegal credit. Donegal were brilliant. Well deserved their victory. And Roscommon fans, I know, I hear you. 3 second half goals. You were brilliant. What a win. Davy Burke, what a man. Have you heard the Down backroom news over the weekend as well?
No.
This snuck under the radar a little bit. It was so Down had a great win in Thurles to kick off their league at the weekend. Jim McGuinness apparently is in the Down backroom team.
What?
Yes.
Officially?
Stevie Poacher has said this yesterday, that Jim McGuinness is, as of last week, part of Conor Laverty's Down backroom. They're going well. They had a decent McKenna Cup, good win against Monaghan, and then they come into the league with a very, very, very good win down in Thurles, considering the struggles they had in the league last year. But apparently, I'm just looking at the tweet in front of me here from Stevie Poacher yesterday. Massive win for Down away in Thurles. First real competitive win in over a year. Will be a huge relief to the group. Plus, the addition of Jim McGuinness this week has given the whole county a lift. Exciting times. He's a Gaelic Life columnist, of course. We know Stevie Poacher from this show. Good source, but apparently he's back in.
We buried the lead.
Yeah.
We buried the lead. That'll
just came to me again there yesterday. Just there now. So
we will come back to that with Anthony Moyles a little bit later on. But at 14 minutes past 8, that is this week's episode of the Gillette Labs Performance Rankings.
OTB AM's Performance Rankings with Gillette.